Okay then, joining me now are two of the main contributors to the Phantom Who Talks range. I have Paul W.T. Ballard and Toby Hadoke with me today.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. You weren't expecting the WT,
What did
were
the
you?
W... Well, I've seen it written down, and it seems like a different person. Do you know? Is that Paul? What does the WT stand for?
WT is my middle name.
Well, yes, I know that.
Well, it would be WTF otherwise, wouldn't it?
Oh, well, that's very true. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
But
Okay.
Walter?
All my Christian names are Doctor Who doctors.
William Thomas.
Mother and father knew that.
Paul William Thomas.
It's quite Welsh sounding actually, William Thomas.
William. Well, in fact, William Thomas is the first actor to have been in classic Doctor Who and new Doctor Who, because he was in Remembrance of the Daleks and then Boomtown.
But he's not on our commentary for Remembrance of the Daleks.
No. No. Unless we do a sequel.
We could do it again.
Well, you may have to on the basis
come on
of
the
that.
special edition.
A special edition, absolutely. Always a good excuse to bring another version of it out, isn't it? What are your involvements in the Who Talks?
Well, he asks me to do them, and I say yes. So it was your idea. Was it your idea?
Yeah. Basically, because we produce a lot of audiobooks and different things, we had because we do the conventions as well, of sort of marrying them up, because there were a few DVDs where, especially the two returned Troughton stories, where there was nothing. So a lot of people thought, is there going to be a special edition? And I mean, of course, at Enemy there has been since, but at the time...
Yeah, no, there wasn't. And I remember being quite cross when it came out, because there was talk that they were going to do it, and then they released it vanilla. And I think we went, well, as punters, we would like there to be commentaries, and Paul has the wherewithal, and he knows where all the bodies are buried and in which gardens of which Doctor Who actors they're buried. So he rings them up and says, I'm not going to tell you that there are people buried in your garden if you will do the Enemy of the World commentary. And so that's... Were they the first two we did, the Web and Enemy?
Well, yeah, actually, to go back onto the history of it, we did a couple that weren't released at the time because of the people that came into the studio when we did them. Does that make any sense? So Margot... not Margot. I should know these names, shouldn't I?
Marcia Wheeler.
And Sylvia came in and did some Cyberman stuff with us, which then went on later on. So
okay.
We'd already started banking early. Because basically, the situation arose where we'd got the studio booked, hadn't got something to put in there, and we thought, okay, let's go for it. Let's go for the commentary thing. And then inevitably, you start getting emails back from people who say, I would love to do that, but I can't do that date. And you think you can either leave them out or you work around it. So there was no way we were going to get Web and Enemy in the same day. So we did a bit of both over 2 weeks or sort of a month, something like that, 2 sessions. Because I think initially Mary Peach wanted to do it but couldn't come, and Milton John wanted to do it but couldn't come. And the first person to say yes, and God bless her, because she was a massive supporter of us all, was Debs.
Deb, yeah.
And I phoned her up and said, Debs, got a project, it's 2 days away, can you come and do it? She's like, yes, dear, I don't know what you're actually talking about, but yes, dear, I'll come and do it, just tell me the time. And she did, so bless her, we got to do...
Well, it's good, because we got her on, because she's not on the BBC one, because she passed away, so...
Do you try to get everybody into the studio all in one go for these, or do you try and did you piece them together in post-edit? How's it working?
I think we'd rather do it like that, but we're just a prey to people's schedules, really.
Yeah, it's a bit of a headache doing any of these, insofar as say you pick the Claws of Axos. I'm not specifically saying that, but you're just doing that story on that day, and if you're recording between 2 and 5, someone might say, "Oh, I can do that day. I can do it at 10 o'clock," and then someone will say, "I can do it, but I've got to be gone by 6," and so you sort of end up juggling who can come in on what point and what day, and sometimes not everyone can do the same day. So there are releases where we've just gone, bam, episode 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's quite good. There's a good feeling to doing that.
But to be fair, that happened with the BBC ones as well. I remember with the Ice Warriors commentary, because we could only get people at certain times of the day. We started with episodes 5 and 6, and then did episode 1 and 3. So of course, in episode 5, you've got Fraser Hines go, is that Peter Barkworth? And you have to go, Fraser, you saw him an hour ago, but not yet. Do you know what I mean? So it's very tricky. It's always been, but as I say, that was when we were doing the BBC ones. So it's just a thing of scheduling, isn't it?
I remember Michael Bryant was surprisingly good at that. In that when we did the Green Death, he was doing the later episodes before he did the first episode. So he was saying, as I already mentioned. And he's like, oh, okay, you know the form.
As director, he's got the overview of the whole thing, you see. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
What are the other challenges on putting a Who Talks together, typically?
Well...
Toby's availability.
Well, oh, God, it's... Because, I mean, I once... I'm shames me to this day about the one when I got a text from Ben saying, I'll see you later, and I went, what? And it was because... I thought we were talking about the following week, because it was my fault, wasn't it? And I was very late. I was very, very late because I got on a train, because I live in Manchester, so I got on a train then. You were very sweet about it. He doesn't
to his face.
Yeah, I said, but what are it's. I mean, I have to say, we were talking about it's. You can't just talk. You know, if with the best will in the world, if you think somebody who's 85 is going to remember everything about something that happened 55. I remember when we did the Dominators for the BBC, it was the time when I went on forums looking for the kindness of strangers, and then realised that it didn't exist there, so I went away again. Somebody complaining that Fraser Hines was we didn't have him for episode 3 of the Dominators, and somebody genuinely said, well, that's ridiculous because we won't have his memories of that episode. And you really think Fraser Hines has different memories boxed off for each week of the Dominators? And so I think the challenge for me is to talk around the subject, but of stuff that is still of interest to the listener. It was a difficult one for one that's not out yet. I don't know if it's even been announced, where two people start having a conversation about cricket. And I really like cricket, and it's actually very interesting hearing these two people who you would never hear talk about cricket anywhere else. But part of you going, but how much of this do I allow before we go, do you remember this hat? Because a lot of the listeners are going, I'd rather hear about the hat. So, but I would hope the listeners are interested in the people as well. But it is trying to get it. You know, if we talk about other TV shows, I'm always conscious that people would want us to be talking about Blake Seven or the Tomorrow People or whatever, and less about something that isn't of a fantastical. That's not necessarily always the case, but it's there are some subject matters that I would try to steer people to and away from.
But what would be quite nice, though, is that you're able to get some new information that comes out that isn't necessarily on the official BBC commentary, for example. So actually giving your guests an opportunity to have some leeway in there's probably not a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, we don't censor anybody. We haven't had to censor anybody.
No. Well, and the BBC ones, you're not allowed to swear, but you're allowed to swear on yours.
Yes.
Louise Payo said dog's balls, which was very exciting to
yeah,
hear.
With the accent.
Miss Kelly saying dog's balls.
Well, I'd say sales of Seeds of Death is going up here somewhere along the line.
And yeah, Richard Martin F-bomb, that was a shock. But it all
we still got a sweepstake on which Doctor Episode is the first to get the C-bomb dropped on a commentary.
We'll remake the censor, right? Someone will have to. But yeah, I think actually, and also I'm going to be nice about you here. I think that the contributors always respond well because you're also an actor, so you've got a sort of standpoint that's a common ground with them, and also it is a conversation where you go around and you will know who they are talking about, which is a massive skill. When someone's going, that chap, and if you leave that hanging for too long, it becomes this really awkward expanse. But you can always get in with who they are talking about, and you can.
Yes, I've had to get bold with that because I think there's one on, I think it's on. Maureen O'Brien was saying, who's Gertrude Klauber married to? And I thought it was Gwendolyn Watson. And of course, if I'd got it wrong, you could have done we don't really do retakes either. And I just went, I better not say it. And they said, it was Gwendolyn Watson. And I went, yeah, I knew that. I should have said. So I'm trying to get bolder because it doesn't matter if I get embarrassed, I guess. But one has one's pride. But it's interesting how you can suddenly there in the... Because you know, you can't plan these conversations. Sometimes when, you know, people say, oh, and I can't believe he said that, you think this isn't a planned conversation. It's an hour and a half's worth of conversation. Sometimes things just come out of your mouth to keep it going. So, you know, it's not a script. And also, one, is it not script, and two, you don't know what lines you're going to be fed. Fraser Hines has always done this thing where he thinks it's amusing if he can ask me a question, not about Doctor Who, but about something else that I don't know the answer to. And it's like, well, why would I? Why would I know that? Do you know what I mean? Gotcha. Well, not really. I mean, you could ask me anything. Well, you know, who lives at number 21 Leicester Street? You know what I mean? I don't know. The people I'm sure I've had it a couple of times where people have said, so were you in this? I sort of go,
Roy Spencer.
I wasn't. Yeah, the Ark. Was I in the Ark? No, that wouldn't have been possible. That wouldn't have been possible for another 8 years. Yeah. So not only was I in it, I was massively not in it. It was not even in the realms of possibility that I would have been in it. But so
you're almost going to have to cut at that point, because how do you keep a straight face when somebody else says that to you?
I think the closest that could have come to that, and how you recovered, was with Carmen Munro. when you pointed out the date of The Enemy of the World, you're like, oh, that's next.
It was 2018. So when we did it was next year, I think.
Next year, and like, so these are all the fashions we're going to be wearing next year. And she's like, no. I was like, oh, wait, why not? Because the robots will have taken over. I mean, he kept going. So what happens to us then? And there was just that pause. Which went, fodder. I mean, we're all still here, so she was wrong.
But I'm pleased to say. Because it was I'd sort of had it in my head as this will be a funny thing to say. Oh, look, are we all going to be wearing plastic with high collars in 2018? But she's got this apocalyptic thing where we're on farms.
Ruled by the robots.
Yeah, but it was the pause that did it. Then fodder. Brilliant. That's probably my favourite moment of all the ones that we've done. That's sort of like a crazy. Generally speaking, I think people are quite lucid about what they're watching. I mean, it varies, and it's also interesting in terms of what the dynamic is with the size of the group. So if you get, I think the ones we did with just Maureen on her own were really good. They were quite deep. It depends on the people, yeah. But you can have some where it's just you and one other person, and I've done interviews where it's me and one other person, and it's been, crikey, that's about, as you say, somebody like Maureen. Because Maureen, I think, is really interesting because she, you know, did about 2 interviews with Doctor Who magazine, or maybe even 1 when I was younger. And that was because she had a book to publicise, and it was always... we always got the impression she was very dismissive of Doctor Who. But that's because the words, oh, I'm only doing this because I've got a book to publicise, are there without any of the person. And she's one of the... I only met her for the first time at the 50th anniversary. And we kept in touch after that. And I think she's really lovely. And she's not dismissive of Doctor Who at all. But she's still, to me, somebody quite new in that. She's not on all of the DVDs. She didn't do many interviews. She was always slightly elusive. And she's never been anything other than, really open. I mean, geographically, it's awkward. She's not always around, is she? But she's very smart. And so she's one of those people that actively engages in a question that you ask her and then gives you a little bit more, which is a relief.
Is there an ideal group size?
Do you know, I would say no, insofar as, on the sort of solo front, because with Stones of Blood, I threw you the curveball of Shirin Taylor, who is on screen for about a minute as Pat the Camper.
Pat the Camper.
Pat the Camper. She's not even Pat on screen, is she? She's just Camper.
The credit is Camper's James Murray and Shirin Taylor, but she's...
But 25 minutes, and it's a great... Somebody actually said on the forum that it was their favourite commentary that we've done.
What?
You and Shirin for 25 minutes.
She's in it. I mean, she's in it for literally 90 seconds, isn't she?
Yeah.
And you said you're going to do the whole episode of The Stones of Blood with somebody who's in it for 90 seconds. But I can't remember what we talked about now.
But it's a good conversation because it's a broader conversation that goes around things that you wouldn't necessarily even engage with. I mean, it was a similar situation when we do a book. Sometimes some will buy an autobiography because Mary Tam's in Doctor Who, but then they come away from it going, oh, actually, the Doctor Who part was probably the finite part, but the person was the...
Well, I found that when I did my Who's Round commentary was that I would say to people, yes, I do talk about Doctor Who, but frequently the least interesting part of the interview is Doctor Who. Now, there are always going to be people who, you know, when it comes to the commentaries or something, will go, well, unless you only talk about Doctor Who, I'm not interested. And you go, well, one, it sort of misses the point of Doctor Who, because the good thing about Doctor Who is it makes you interested in all sorts of other things. But at the end, you just have to sort of go with your gut. And I'm, you know, a massive Doctor Who fan. I go, what would I like to listen to? First, I'd go, not me. But other than that, what would I like to listen to? And it's because you can only go with what you want because you don't necessarily understand. It's like when I remember somebody saying about the animated Ice Warriors episodes, we filled in something with the BBC, and somebody said, "Oh, I can't believe they did it without the animation." Well, it wasn't ready. They said because I think it'd be really interesting to know what they say when they're confronted with the animation. Well, the answer is not very much. They're going to go, "Is that you? Yes. Does it look like you? Yes/no. What's it like looking at a drawn version of you? Interesting/not interesting." And then you've got another 24 minutes. But there are some people who go, no, but it's really important that they see the pictures. So I don't know what those people want, so I can only do what I would like to hear, really.
I think sometimes it works both ways with a larger group, insofar as it's great because you get the chemistry of a room and it flies.
It takes pressure off me a bit. I prefer it if there's more.
Yeah.
I also think it's better if there's a mixture of actors and technical personnel.
Yeah.
Because you can go up a blind alley and just bring it back, or it just gives a little bit of variation. But you actually don't know until you've got the bunch of people in the room. I mean, fortunately, we've usually met the people, certainly the actors before, some of the behind-the-scenes people. I think we've dug out some very interesting sort of floor managers, assistant floor managers, people like that, who weren't on the DVD range much at all, actually, full stop, who are brilliant. And production managers are particularly good because they're people who have to remember lots of things and are down to the nitty-gritty and minutiae of production and quite often have kept their paperwork. So people like that, I think, are a godsend, and they, as actors, have become sort of, most actors have now appeared at things and done things or been interviewed somewhere. That's an area I think you've really opened up, and you've got, in a couple of the recent ones that we did, there were people that I'd never heard anything from who suddenly come, and people who've had interesting careers outside of Doctor Who, but also who've never talked about Doctor Who before.
And then I suppose there's sort of, I think Survival was a great one because they're all still friends and they all still have that dynamic.
And I knew them all.
And you knew all, so it's got so much pace to it.
Yeah, well, I think we worked out that we all got divorced at about the same time. We all lived in about the same part. I mean, Will Barton, who's Midge in Survival, lived over the road from me. And then when I was getting divorced, I was interviewing Dave John for about something, and my then wife's best friend walked in, and I was just like, "What's happening here?" And he said, "That's North London, mate." So I sort of knew all of those people. And that was the other thing I can't say. Will and I had another very amusing and slightly embarrassing link that made us all chortle just before we started, because we discovered that the same thing had happened to both of us, and so it got it. There was a lot of bonhomie in the studio that day, and then Rona Munro, who'd not at that time been interviewed anywhere. Came in and was so that was really exclusive and was game and brilliant. The Survival runs are really, and that's a really good one on the story. Some are good because, you know, the story is a leap-off point to talk about other things and discover certain personalities of people who haven't been interviewed much. But I think that's a really good one about that gang of people.
Yeah, and I think usually that comes from having the guest cast. If you get whoever's the companion at the time, they will have done 2-3 years or something on the show. So there'll be certain ones which stand out, certain moments which stand out. But episode 3 of the 4th story they did, probably less so than someone that was
only in
episode
3
or a production manager.
Well, that's why I've always been interested in the guest actors. And in fact, when I was younger, the first thing I ever had published was interviews in Doctor Who magazine with the guest actors from Power of the Daleks and Fury from the Deep. Because for that, I thought, well, you know, they have more specific memories of that particular story. So I'd always been no disrespect to the regulars, but it's like you're almost spoilt by them. So if Doctor Who magazine did another interview with Nicholas Courtney, it'd be like, well, yeah, and I love Nicholas Courtney. But if they said, oh, we've got an interview with Norman Jones, they never did, sadly, or, you know, but so Walter Rand, when they interviewed Walter Rand, you go, oh yeah, brilliant, because he was in a guest star in loads of stories. So, you know, those were the ones that really appealed to me.
I think some of our sort of hero contributors that sort of slightly understand. I think Margot Hayhoe is worth her weight in gold for anything. And Roger Bunce is one of those...
Roger Bunce, cameraman, who's brilliant.
You would never say, because he's not even... Because they didn't credit cameraman, so he's got no on-screen credit.
Crew 3 on the paperwork even. He's not even on the paperwork.
But he knows. So when you're watching, he knows what the studio setup was, what the cameras would have been. It's fascinating, and he's got such a knowledge of it that actually...
And his son's a Doctor Who fan, which I think helps as well, so it's always been kept in his mind. But and also Roger worked, I think, if he didn't do any Hartnells, he certainly did Evil of the Daleks. But he worked all through. I think if he did Evil, he might have done a couple early, but he definitely did Evil. He definitely did Paradise Towers, and quite a lot in between. So, you know...
Yeah, you've referenced quite a number of 60s stories as you've gone through. I'd be particularly interested in understanding how you approach the difficulties of the photo recon stories only. So something like The Massacre, where there is only, the photo recons available to comment along to.
Well, to be honest, we don't, because of the... we have the episodes on and we have the sound coming through our ears. But if the conversation's going well, they're really only an aide-memoire. We're not watching it. So in the same sense, we have photos flashing up and we have the soundtrack, but we're not watching, we're having a conversation, and occasionally, it's as much to see a telesnap, not even a telesnap, but a picture of Leonard Sachs as the Admiral de Coligny as it is to see a clip of him moving, I remember, was it Roy Spence hadn't brought his glasses, so he kept standing up and looking.
Hadn't brought his theatre glasses.
Yeah. So was he the one who didn't recognise himself? No, that's you.
Yeah. Am I in this one?
Yes, there you are.
So I think with the Massacre, when we do, Massacre, we dip the toe with Marco Polo. I think.
I'm not on that. That's
with the other chap.
That's the other chap. Yes.
The other chap. That's not him. We did.
I was doing a radio play in Manchester with Geoffrey Whitehead, who did William Hartnell's last stage performance with him.
No Doctor Who.
No Doctor Who. He's one of that. It should have been in Doctor Who.
Still could.
But I was doing an H.G. Wells radio play, so I'm afraid I had to back out. Yeah, I had to back out gracefully.
But Nick Pegg and Carol Ann sat and watched telesnaps of Marco Polo episode 1, as you do, and it worked. It worked quite well as a thing. In some ways, it worked slightly better because they weren't focused on the visuals. You get a sense of visual, but you're not watching it, so you don't get tricked into following the action.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever heard a Blake Seven commentary on the DVDs where they go, because let's watch this. That's the first,
worse. There's nothing worse. Or, what's he up to? Oh, I won't spoil it for you. Oh, he looks like he's a bad guy. It's like, people watching this will have seen this.
Yeah.
You wouldn't watch a commentary before you watch the actual thing. So I think it was the sort of, we did the Savages, I think, we did that with Peter Thomas and
Kay, yeah.
So then it became a thing, let's try a full story, and I think Massacre's got such a good cast and such a...
Yeah, because you've got David and...
David just said, do I need to, or can we just talk? And he just took his headphones off, I think, for that. Yeah. But it's important, I think, to get these memories recorded, and to be honest with you, there isn't a Massacre DVD, there isn't a Massacre Blu-ray. So what outlet is there to do an interview? And it's good to get this stuff down.
And plugging the gaps, because, And that was, that was important when we were planning, let's plug the gaps of the ones that aren't on DVD. And you thought, well, why do we have to restrict ourselves to the ones that are on DVD? Because, as I say, sometimes what's going on the screen is massively unimportant. And they are sort of extended interviews in a way. And because they don't come with the pictures, it's not a deliberate policy of going, and remember, some people watching it won't have the things in front of them. We still go, ooh, what's that, or whatever. But I know from speaking to people that a lot of people listen to them in the car on the way to work or whatever. So it actually doesn't matter. And we just got used to DVD commentaries as a thing. But I think actually they're becoming less of a thing now anyway, as DVD dies. So standalone interviews, where they're just useful for us in terms of timing, aren't they? And in terms of, I know that I've got to keep people to a certain time, so it helps to focus what the interview is. But, we're not wedded to the pictures.
No.
Which are the favourite ones for you that you've done?
I did like the stuff. Now, see, this is the terrible thing, is because
he doesn't know what's released.
Well, yeah. Well, one that, and also we had a conversation the other day, earlier today, wasn't it, where you went, I went, when's that one coming out? And you said, well, it's coming out with those episodes. And I went, have we done those episodes? You said, yeah, we did the whole story. I mean, so I have the gall to sit with actors, asking them about something they did 40 years ago, and I can't remember something I did 7 months ago. But I loved George Layton on the Space Pirates, because he's had such a brilliant career. The Space Pirates was very early in his career. He's about the only actor that's not mentioned as a guest star in the Radio Times. He's right there at the bottom. It's the Space Pirates, and he was totally game. None of it was, oh, this is before I was successful. He didn't really actually talk about it. He was there because it was Doctor Who, and he wasn't sort of going, well, he knew exactly what he was there for, but we still did talk about other stuff, but there was no sense that he was slumming it because he was talking about Doctor Who or any of that sort of thing. I liked The Three Doctors, because is that out? Yeah, that's out. Because I adore Laurie Webb, who plays Mr. Ollis, who is 93, and he'd never seen it. And I actually took a photo, because he was sitting there grinning away. So I actually took a photo of it. And I tweeted it actually, that Mr. Ollis watches The Three Doctors the first time, and Mark Gatiss retweeted that. And he's amazing, because then you go out and I mean, I've got an 18-year-old son, and Laurie was talking about being on Normandy beaches at the same age as my son. And you go, there's this funny little Welshman who still plays golf 3 times a week, was Mr. Ollis in The Green Death. And Mr. Ollis is quite sort of taciturn and doesn't say much. So you sort of wonder if and he's nothing like that. So of course not, he was acting. And this great enthusiastic guy, and he's really lovely. And he goes, yeah, I saw things on. Well, I said, I won't talk, don't want to talk about that, but oh yeah, he was there. And you go, crikey, it's a privilege to sort of meet these people and to record. And part of you thinks, and he was on Normandy Beach, and I'm recording his memories of the Three Doctors.
Three Doctors.
But that's the main thing about it for me, is that these sort of amazing people that you meet and get to spend time with them. We've had some big names. So we got Julian Glover came in.
Yeah. But no,
What's your favourite one, Paul?
What's my favourite one?
Yes, he did duck this earlier. What's your favourite Who talk?
I think, and it's one of my favourite stories anyway, I think Stones of Blood is probably my favourite.
Okay, we've got a lot of people for that.
And Daryl is amazing on that. Susan.
Daryl Blake's very, very good, isn't he?
And Caroline's his neighbour, so they're good friends.
Yeah, and Nick McArdle's not on the DVD, so that's
quite.
yeah.
I like that. Survival we've mentioned already. I like that.
Resurrection of the Daleks. Get Rula Lenska for Resurrection of the Daleks.
Yeah.
Rula Lenska.
I don't think she liked it when I told her to take her bangle off. She puts it on at the very end of the commentary, so I think that was a resolute ungoing. But she loved it, and she that was one of my favourite quotes ever from The Range. When she got to the end of the episode, she said, "I should have worn a bra." As a review of Eric Saywood's writing, she's like, "I should have worn a bra." And Eric, I think, again, is another great contributor, because we tend to have him solo. He's done a couple of duo, but he has done some solo, and he's got quite a dry wit.
Yes, which doesn't, because he's not on many of the commentaries, is he, on the DVDs? He's sort of interviewed, and then, they sort of pick and choose which bits of Eric, and the bits of Eric that they tend to use on the DVDs are the ones that are sort of critical of certain aspects, because that's often what they're after him to say. So actually to have him unedited, as it were, you get a slightly different side of him.
I mean, it hasn't come out yet either, but Revelation was quite fun, wasn't it? Because Colin hadn't done that for the...
Yes, that was nice to fit that one in, Revelation, and...
it's exclusive.
Yeah,
yeah,
you heard it here first, folks.
Yeah. It's on the way.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, actually, what does the future hold?
Have I ruined your question?
No, you haven't. What's the future?
Well, there's an exclusive that we recorded a couple of Christmases ago. I had to come to Birmingham,
you had to come all the way to Birmingham to meet.
And I did that out of love, because it was somebody that's I've not seen an interview with anyway.
No, that's Yuzan Churchman.
Oh, yeah.
We'll go.
I was being tantalising.
Oh, I just put straight out.
You're straight for the money shot. I came to mend the washing machine. You cut right to the end.
Oh no. He was the trailer and I was the main feature, which no one wanted to see.
Oh dear.
It's been an enjoyable chat. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me to go through some of what Who Talks is all about.
Thank you.
Thank you.